listening to.
You're listening to.
You are listening to.
You're listening to.
Again, and you're listening.
You're listening to
Active FM.
To Active FM.
To Active FM.
FM.
To Active FM.
Hey, and welcome to the political show right here on Active FM, where radio has never been better. I'm your girl Cynthia, and with me in studio we have
Gavin Enslin,
Pastor Gavin Enslin, and
The Black Knight.
The Black Knight. And like I said, you listen to the political show on Active FM, where radio has never been better, and Christ politics is
Hot Politics.
Hot politics, and this week's Hot Politics is a hot politic topic. Very hot. We are speaking about Davos, and not just about the meeting that they have every year, but specifically what they discussed this year in terms of the pandemic, in terms of climate change and stuff. Do you want to explain more about what we're going to be speaking about?
Yeah, basically, obviously Klaus Schwab, he's the founder, and he's part of this elite globalist class. He wrote a book a number of years ago called The Fourth Industrial Revolution. Mm-hmm. He wrote one during 2020 called The Great Reset. Yeah. And, even our own President Cyril Ramaphosa, he's even made statements and that you hear things like, we have this unique opportunity to reimagine the economy, to address, social imbalances, build back better. Yeah. Don't know if you've seen a whole lot of nations, their presidents and prime ministers saying, let's build back better. That's Joe Biden. Yeah. JB, and then BBB, build back better. Yeah. All of that stuff comes from the World Economic Forum. Yeah. And, what this forum is actually all about. It's an organization that's been put in place to allow some elite global banker type people to gain control of the whole world economy. Yep. And they do it under the guise of saying we need to address social imbalances. So here's the theory, right? So you got the rich and the haves, and so in South Africa that's your whites, they say, and the have-nots, which is the blacks, they say. So in other words, they now divide you along racial lines, and then what happens is they say, right, we need to make everyone equal. So the blacks who the have-nots, they will stay at the bottom. And then the whites who the haves will be equal to okay. Everything just collapsed during the show. The whites will be collapsed to be at the same level of the blacks. And then obviously everything becomes cheap. So then these elites take over everything. Yeah. Now, in South Africa the white black thing is just the argument that they use. It's a nonsense argument. But they actually teach us in universities and all of this kind of stuff that the world is such a terrible place that free market economics is a terrible system, and this thing of people having ownership is a terrible thing. So at the end of the day, just cancel it all, make everyone equal, everyone do it poor, and let's control everything. They want worldwide control.
Yep, that's what we're going to be speaking about. It's going to be quite interesting. And a lot of the things that they speak about is out in the open. And yeah.
I'm going to give you some information about a meeting that happened on September 1st at the World Economic Forum. And I want you to really understand what's being said here. Tell me about the two people that are involved.
Right. So this is an interview, believe it or not, between the head of the World Economic Forum.
Yeah. And by the way, anyone who says it's a conspiracy, we're telling you, go to the World Economic Forum. Listen to them. They're openly discussing it.
Absolutely. They published this interview on their own on the World Economic Forum website. It's between the head of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, one of the most outspoken supporters of the Great Reset, of resetting the global system, of forcing America to come along with it, as well as other countries around the world, and Christine Lagarde, who is the head of the European Central Bank. That's the bank essentially for the European Union and the euro. It's sort of like the Fed.
Our Fed. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay. So he asks the head of the European Fed about the role central banks should have in society. Now, what is our Fed's charter? Our Fed's charter is very simple. What is it?
Our Fed's charter is to ensure that the monetary system is, stable.
Yes, stable and to watch for inflation.
Right.
That's it. So she said, now listen to this. What role can central banks play in the fight against climate change? Well, that's a highly controversial issue. There are some traditional thinkers who believe central banks should altogether stay out of that business and exclusively concentrate on inflation and price stability. That's the charter of the Fed Bank. I strongly disagree with that. At the ECB, the Fed of Europe, we now have wrapped up and concluded our strategy review, which was the first one in 17 years. And I was blessed to have an entire governing council unanimously agree that the fight against climate change should be one of the considerations that we take when we determine monetary policy. So at least the European Central Bank is of the view that climate change is an important component in order to decide on monetary policy. Okay, you can say, well, that's good because climate change is really important. That's not the scary part. Listen to what she says. After acknowledging central banks should get involved in this, Lagarde said people are going to have to suffer and sacrifice. Listen to this. And that takes me to your second question, Lagarde said. Can we arrive at the trade-off between fighting climate change, preserving biodiversity, and yet securing enough growth to respond to legitimate demands of the population? Listen to that. Again, can we fight climate change and secure enough growth to respond to legitimate demands of the population? Legitimate, whatever they define as legitimate demands. And my first answer, Klaus, to be firm, is that to have a way of life, we need life. And in the medium term, we have major threats on the horizon that could cause the death of hundreds of thousands of people. So we must think life first. We have to think of way of life second. Do you understand, America, what that means? You have elites that you never elected that are having these meetings. They are out in the... You have Davos. Davos is the World Economic Forum. So you have all of those elites that go to Davos every year deciding what is a legitimate need for you and telling you that your needs are going to go away in your lifetime. You may not see a time where you get wants again. Just your needs are going to be addressed. Am I reading this wrong?
No, this is absolutely what is being said here. Dude, she's very clear that we need to make sure that way of life is second to life. We have to save all of these people, hundreds of thousands of people who are going to die from the supposedly existential threat of climate change, and put their wants and their desires and their high quality of living, all of that has to come second. And she later went on to say that, and make sure that the cost of it, she's talking about the cost of these climate change policies, make sure that the cost of it is not so high for some people.
For some people.
That's right.
For some people.
That they just cannot tolerate it. I think that the trade-off that we reach will probably require some redistribution, because it is clear that the most exposed people, the less privileged people, are those that are going to need some help. So this is a central bank saying this. This is not an elected official who's accountable directly to the people. There's a central bank saying we're going to print money, we're going to use monetary policy to impose these ideas to rework society in order to accomplish our goals.
Now, you can say, well, that's just the Davos crowd, and that's just the European Central Bank. Where's the Fed on this? Where's our Federal Reserve? Where are they on this?
They are moving in exactly the same direction. Exactly the same direction. And there's been people who have been openly talking about this. In fact, there was this article in Bloomberg that was published, I think it was in late August. And this is the article, it was incredible, was designed to defend people who were criticizing the Fed for not doing as much as the European Central Bank. That was the point of the article. And in the article, they report on what's been going on here in America. And they said Powell, that's the head of the Federal Reserve here, and the Fed's Board of Governors created two new entities, the Financial Stability Climate Committee to focus on the broader financial system, and the Supervision Climate Committee to focus on individual institutions. This matters because it means top officials are committed to regularly evaluating and responding to the threat of climate change. They're already working to ensure that banks embed climate change in their business decisions, analyzing exposures, identifying concentrations of risk, and considering how to manage them over time.
This is not just about climate change. This goes into ESGs. Now, let me tell you about the Great Reset's creepy youth movement that is going on. And I want you to understand, this is not just the United States of America. This is almost every country on planet Earth, either coming to it on their own free will or being strong-armed into it. We are talking about a global government not led by the United States of America. Why do you think we're being systematically dismantled? You cannot bring the world up to America's standards. You must bring America down low to the world's standards. That is what's happening, and it's really important for you to understand. As I've been saying a lot lately, this is going to come like a thief in the night. It is so far well underway, but you must be informed. Okay, so people think that our children are being indoctrinated into Marxism, but that's not really the goal. And a few honest teachers and teachers' unions have been very clear. It is to make your kid into an activist, okay? It's not about reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's about indoctrinating them to get them to become an activist. Why is that so important?
Because and you've seen this with Greta Thunberg. She's sort of the epitome of this whole idea. They believe that they can use, there's two goals to this. The first, I think, is that they believe that they can use kids as a prop to try to get things done because kids are sympathetic. Politicians are not sympathetic, but children are sympathetic.
Correct.
And they can go out there and they don't understand. They haven't been involved in these things for decades. They don't know who the players are. And so they're happy to go out there and protest in the streets and become activists. And they're all too willing to do it.
BLM is a very good example. There's lots of people that went out and because they said Black Lives do matter. I agree with that. But they didn't know that it's Black Lives Matter, Inc., run by a bunch of white people, many of them over in Europe, that were just sowing the seeds of discontent and taking all of that money. So they're not looking beyond the message. Now, they are the World Economic Forum in conjunction with its Global Shapers, their youth activation program, which has ties to Al Gore and his climate work, has just published a millennial manifesto that has 6 principles for activism. When did the Davos people say, you know what we need, Lovey, is a manifesto for our children? But this is what they're pumping to our children. I just want to go through them quickly and stop me if there's something you think needs to be put in. 1, we will create space for intergenerational dialogue. That seems great. We'll ask big questions to advance bold solutions. We will pursue systems of change and collective action. We will build bridges across communities to strengthen the structures that work and dismantle those that don't. Really important language. We will set ambitious goals and move from talk to action. We will focus on local changes that can lead to global transformations and celebrate our progress. We'll make space for diverse lived experiences. We'll embrace uncomfortable conversations. We'll surrender our privilege and give everyone a seat at the table. We'll engage to listen, understand, and co-create solutions. We'll create brave spaces for ideas to be heard, questioned, and challenged. Yeah, right. We'll recognize the complex intersectionality of social change. We'll care for ourselves, others, and our ecosystem.
Right. What people need to understand is that there are literally hundreds of these groups all over the world with thousands of members, youth members, who are being given this material and being trained by the World Economic Forum to become youth activists in the streets. And in other documents that the World Economic Forum has put out, they've said that the reason for this is so that these groups can put pressure locally on their political leaders to go along with the sort of Great Reset agenda. That's the goal of all of this. An international network of youth activists like Greta Thunberg who can go to their local governments and demand these changes in the streets and force these politicians to shout down children.
It is why it is so important for you to act locally, because they are acting locally. This is what really is happening. And I got to tell you, anybody who thought they were freedom fighters, the 60s, 70s, 80s, whenever, you have the Davos people training your children in groups to help the biggest globalist George Soros types of the world who are flying out to Davos every year. You have them training them on what they have to do for fairness. It is insidious and it is everywhere. We will have more on this in the coming days and weeks, and the new book on the Great Reset by myself and Justin Haskins will be coming out, I believe, in January. You need the facts on this. Thank you, Justin. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Glenn.
So that was a portion of a video that played on
The Glenn Beck Show.
Yes, on YouTube and stuff. And they were basically speaking about how an interview or meeting that took place between Klaus Schwab, who is the head of the World Economic Forum, and a central banker, I forgot her name.
Christine Lagarde.
Yes, Christine Lagarde, where they were basically speaking how central banks should begin to make monetary policies for climate change and stuff, and then spoke.
Well, initially these organizations were only supposed to handle monetary policy and banking, interest rates and all of those sorts of things. And now they're saying no, they must get involved in climate change.
Yeah, I mean, I don't go to the bank to ask how I should save the earth. I mean, I wouldn't want to go there. Imagine going to your banker and depending on the type of account you're opening and all of these things, all your interest rates are dependent on how you deal with climate change and things like that. That's basically what she's speaking about. And I personally, she actually says they quote her that traditional thinkers say that bankers or your central bank, your local bank, should focus on monetary things. So they're saying that you're a traditional thinker if that's the case, and that's not what she believes, and things like that. So they spoke about that, and she then went on to speak about the fact that one way to tackle climate change is if you focus on the needs of the people, which sounds awesome. I mean, the needs of the people and stuff. But then...
No, but she uses the word legitimate needs.
Yes, legitimate needs.
Who does she think she is?
Yes, because the need of someone who has a specific social stance is not the same as a person. For instance, in South Africa, those that live in squatter camps and stuff, their needs are not the same as those that live in an area like Sandton, which is one of the rich areas in the north here in South Africa, in Joburg, and stuff like that. So she says legitimate needs, and then they basically speak about the fact that who decides the needs of the people? They decide. The World Economic Forum basically decides the needs of the people. Davos.
Well, they decide if a need is legitimate.
Yeah, basically. So let me quickly go through what Davos is for those of you who don't know what Davos is. Now, Davos is the informal name of the annual 4-day conference held by the World Economic Forum in Davos, Klosters, Switzerland. The non-profit organization's aim is to engage the foremost political, business, cultural, and other leaders of society to shape global, regional, and industry agendas according to its website. So according to the website, that's what Davos is for. Now, each year, business leaders and heads of state give lectures and speak on panels about topics ranging from gender equality and venture capital to mental health and climate change. This is from Wikipedia. The real magic happens behind closed doors. However, the rich and powerful use the event as a chance to network and hash out their differences out of the public eye. North and South Korean officials held their first ever ministerial level meetings at Davos in 1989, while Greece and Macedonia settled their nearly 3-decade-long conflict over Macedonia's name at the event in 2018, according to BBC. And this year's Davos focused on the Great Reset.
You're talking about 2021?
Yes, 2021.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're talking about World Economic Forum. So, when this forum was first created, it was about economics.
Yeah.
Now, what does mental health have to do with economics? What does women's issues have to do with economics?
Yeah.
So now this is like more sort of a world government sort of structure, if I can put it that way. And so looking at all of these things, what you also find at Davos. Now it wasn't quite the same in 2021 because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But normally you'd find all the presidency and the prime ministers and most of your leaders of the top nations in the world would all congregate, in Davos, and then you'd have all these media organizations and all of these. There's just so much of a focus, and it's normally at the beginning of January every year, and so. What is the point of this for the common person? And then the thing that should disturb anyone is that most of the magic happens behind closed doors.
Yes. So we don't get to see that magic that they speak about.
Now, most of the leaders who are there are supposedly the leaders of nations where they're in a democracy, which means they were voted into power by the people, which means they're the people's representatives.
Yeah.
So, there's this whole philosophy that says that these leaders are able to have clandestine, secret conversations. It's something that really irks me.
Yeah.
What makes them so special? I know the people can't handle all the information or something like that. That's the kind of thing that they would say. And you can belittle the people like that, but it's actually hogwash.
Yeah.
Why do these things not need to see the light of day? What are you really hiding?
Yeah.
What are you really on about? So Davos is something I normally every year. I didn't watch it this year because all my interest in all of these globalist organizations has dissipated through 2020 with what. The World Health Organization, World Economic Forum, all of these organizations did to the world's population and to the world's economies.
Yeah.
And they also all have this little lapel thing like a circle that they all wear. And it's like a secret club.
Yeah.
The same as when you have your G7 meetings and all of those sorts of things. They had that in Cornwall now, not so long ago.
Yeah.
In the British summer. Then they have these secret meetings and things are discussed that people never voted for.
Yeah.
But you're supposedly a democracy.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to get invited to this. You don't just go to...
No, you don't just pitch up.
Yeah, you have to get
Either
invited.
you're invited or you're a waiter or waitress.
Yes, exactly. It's one of those things. So now they had the agenda, obviously, of the Great Reset, and it's basically the post-COVID-19 world. What it looks like, what they basically trying to focus. Now, when you go on the websites and stuff, they say that the COVID-19 pandemic has proven that no institution or individual can take on the economic, environmental, social, and technological challenges of our world by itself. The crisis has bolstered trends that were evident even before its onset, such as commoditization, or the need for sustainable and inclusive development. Now, these are the 5 things that they focused on in terms of the Great Reset Initiative. So on Monday, the 25th of January, they spoke about designing cohesive, sustainable, and resilient economic systems. Yeah.
One of the things that I've found is that people get on with it. So the thing is, why do you need a few people to come up with the stuff? It's the same as when they came up with the United Nations. They just had World War II, and they used that to advantage to say we need to have United Nations to make sure that we never have World War II again.
Yeah.
But since the formation of the United Nations, there's been probably more wars than ever before. So what gives them the right to come and discuss these things and make all these decisions?
Yeah.
And most likely, the vast majority of people do not want it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then on Tuesday, the 26th of January, they spoke about driving responsible industry transformation and growth.
Now, why is it responsible? This is part of an ideology called you do everything for the greater good.
Yeah.
So it's a very clever mechanism. Everyone suffers, everyone loses out, but no, when you're suffering, you're contributing to the greater good.
Yeah, I mean, in that video that we played in the beginning, he actually mentioned that she said that people will have to suffer and sacrifice.
Why?
To fight climate change. Why are we suffering and sacrifice? What are we suffering for, and what are we sacrificing?
And this week I spoke on the Situation Room about an article speaking about a claim that's been made that Antarctica since the 1990s, the last 20 years or so, has been getting colder.
That's very contradictory to the.
There's also another one that said that with the increase in CO2, the world's more green.
Oh.
There's more greenery. So in other words, you've got more plants growing.
Interesting.
Which actually, by the way, fits in with what creationists say.
Yeah.
Creationists say that from the fall of man, that you had this. I mean, the world was like a greenhouse, and gradually the world has lost that, and so there was a lot more rain and water, a lot less flooding, a lot more calm, a lot more temperate. So some creationists believe that the more carbon you've got, the more greenhouse effect you've got, the better.
Sure.
And that your carbon layers and the other layers, on the edge of the atmosphere, are actually keeping the atmosphere in the earth, and we actually need more of it because we're losing our atmosphere.
Sure.
Gradually, little by little, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It goes off into space.
Sure. And then on Wednesday, the 27th of January, they spoke about enhancing stewardship of our global commons.
Global what?
Commons.
Commons.
Yes.
What is a common?
I think it's what
The stuff that's common to all.
Yes.
Like our oceans.
Yes.
Like the Nile River is common to a number of nations in Africa.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But who gives them the right to say? Because presidents and prime ministers come and go. But the figures like Klaus Schwab and, you've got these other secret sort of figures. They're the ones that are not in front of the cameras. And they make speeches. They make some of the most horrendous statements that most people would absolutely despise, those statements. Who put them in this position to decide this stuff?
Yeah. And then on Thursday, they spoke about harnessing the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution.
The fourth industrial revolution is the biggest threat to mankind.
Yeah.
And there's a thing called transhumanism.
Yes, I read about that.
Yeah, you've got these people that actually believe that we can actually merge people into a computer. It will be the end of people, but we'll carry on living in cyberspace.
Yeah. I mean, I read an article on that, and this person was speaking about the fact that that's the reason they're pushing the whole transgender movement. Because if you look in the pride community, the one thing that they're pushing is transgenderism and stuff, so that we can don't have
children.
Yeah, used to the fact that, hey, it's okay to turn from one person or one thing to another thing.
Yeah, but the thing is, what happens to the birth rate?
Yeah, it actually decreases.
Well, I mean, if a woman tries to become a man and cuts out a uterus, if a man, changes to a woman,
Yeah.
that's it. Those people are never going to have children,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's part of the plan.
Yeah. And funny enough, these people are supposed to stand for the economy and stuff. And if you look at history, when China had the one-child policy, it actually affected their economy
Very badly.
very badly.
In
So
fact, the structural problems they got in the economy today is because of that.
yes. So now, if this is what they're pushing for and stuff, and they're supposed to stand for the economies of the world and stuff, then there's a problem. They're
Well-
not doing what they're there to do.
If you sit down with economists, the biggest threat to any economy is deflation. That's where instead of inflation, your prices are dropping.
Yeah.
Inflation, means there's increased growth. So if you look at the housing bubble in the US,
Yeah.
so I remember seeing a Christian guy, and he spoke when they had the global financial crisis in 2008, and he spoke about the fact that thing was caused in America because they brought in Roe versus Wade in the early 70s, and so you had what was called the baby boomers. And so he predicted, to within a few years of when this crash was going to happen, because it was going to happen when your housing market stopped growing, because the population started dropping due to the fact that people were being aborted from the 1970s. So the birth rate dropped because many babies were aborted,
Sure.
and you took about 60 million people out of the economy.
Sure.
And those people would have all have been contributing to the economy. And so that created a vacuum, so the demand for houses dropped. And obviously there were some other questionable financial instruments that were being used as well, which accelerated things. But the biggest thing was actually abortion. So a drop in birth rate is terrible for the economy.
Yeah. And then on the Friday, they then spoke about advancing global and regional cooperation.
For what?
Now
Just
that-
allow people to get on with their lives.
Now that is the thing. If you look at Klaus Schwab, he actually wrote the book like you spoke about earlier, COVID-19, The Great Reset, and he wrote it last year. And in the book, he basically speaks about the fact that many of us are pondering when things will return to normal. The short response is never. Nothing will ever return to the broken sense of normalcy that prevailed prior to the crisis, because the coronavirus pandemic marks a fundamental inflection point in our global trajectory. And then he speaks about the fact that you never want a serious crisis to go to waste. And what I mean by this is that is an opportunity to do things that you think you could not do before. He says the spread of infectious disease has a unique ability to feel fear, anxiety, and mass hysteria. All in all, saying that COVID-19 is the perfect opportunity to reimagine our world. Does that not sound familiar?
Yes. And at first I fell for that. When the lockdowns began.
Yeah.
I fell for that nonsense. I'm ashamed to say. Please don't judge me, Black Knot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Black Knight,
So,
what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, specifically Black Knot. What we want to build back without this broken sense of normality that was there, it was a broken sense of normality.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts around that?
So I think okay, yeah, at least you're asking me something that I was thinking about when I was going through all of this. That we've had the system that we were living in before the COVID and everything. And I know one thing for sure, our crisis was like murdering, theft and stuff like that all over the world, obviously corruption and all of that. But for me, these are the legitimate problems or matters that we should be focusing on a person, because now when we come to we're fixing a situation for you, but we're using everyone else. You know that it's gonna mess up a lot of things. You know, when I was praying, I was something came to me. In fact, God was like to me, you know, I love the whole world, and I love you. You know what I mean? So there's that. It's different when I'm with you only than when it's with everyone. So it's that whole trick that they playing on us to we using one man's situation to solve for everyone, but we're not all the same. I think you mentioned that thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're not all the same.
Yeah.
So it's a very huge problem, because obviously the person that they're using, and if you say that person's gonna be like, oh, so but you in saying that you don't care about me then. And then that's where the whole argument is going to start. And when we start arguing, they continue doing what they are. That's how they use the race. It's really not about that.
Yeah.
Going through their website, I see it's not about race. Everything that we're fighting about in countries, they not about that. They just using that for us to carry on fighting with those things, while they do what they did to South Africa lately. While we busy fighting, looting, and all of that, they busy passing laws that they know when they say to everyone, okay, everyone stop, come back. When people realize what has happened, it's too late, because there's already laws that has been set, and you can't go against them now, because if you say anything now, you'll get arrested. Then you ask the question, but where was I? You were looting.
Yeah.
Where was I? You were fighting lockdowns.
Yeah.
Where was I? Yeah, you were busy doing that when this was happening. Please show me. Yes, it was Ed, and then they showed you it was, but it wasn't as big as the looting, because they choose what's on TV.
Yeah.
So it's a problem, because they're controlling everything, and it's right. It's actually in plain sight.
Yeah.
That's what they're actually doing to us. Going through their website, I'm like, they're actually telling us what they're gonna do. They're showing us step by step. They actually have a step. Day one, they have a day one, day two. They have. I was like, these guys.
Yeah, that's actually the thing.
Yeah.
People get written off as being conspiracy theorists,
Yeah.
but these guys actually tell you what they're going to do.
Yeah.
You go onto their websites now. World Economic Forum is one, and there's another, like the Rockefeller Foundation is another.
Yeah.
They tell you what they're going to do. The Event 201. Event 201 in 2019. 2 months later, bam, here's COVID-19.
Yeah.
They tell you what they're going to do. And the thing is, in terms of that, how do you strip everyone of everything that they own? Okay, you get them to fight each other so they don't realize what you're doing to them.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly that. And Aaron Russo, actually, who was part of the World Economic Forum, actually said this. This is his words. I'm not making it up.
It's a quote, eh?
It is a quote. The end goal is to get everybody chipped. Vaccine passports.
Yeah.
Yep. To control the whole society, lockdowns. And to have the bankers and elite people control the world. That's what they say.
And I mean, the thing is, but the internet's given us freedom because we can get our messages out there now.
Yeah.
All right. So one day they might shut this whole thing down to stop us being able to communicate. So we need to be ready for that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I mean, how blatant is that?
Yeah.
And our president in South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, is fully in with this stuff.
Yes.
All of our elites in South Africa are fully in. Joe Biden and all of them, they are fully in with this. Boris Johnson is so in with this, it's not even funny.
Yep.
Angela Merkel from Germany is so into this.
Yeah.
Boris Johnson he's even the G7. That's how in it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's happening, and one of the things that we don't do is actually look into it. We watch or we see we're like, oh, I don't want to sit for 5 days and listen to what they have to say and stuff. Then we go read the newspaper articles like, yay, climate change, because we think that they're actually standing for
even worse,
society.
in South Africa they'll have articles about corruption. So and they'll focus on where people are making statements about South Africa's corruption problems.
Yeah.
There was one, they showing a lady who murdered someone, but I'm like, do you know how many people, you know there's a lot of people being murdered. Why is this one now special? And then I wonder, when they're showing this, they showed the whole court case and they made it a big thing. I don't even know this lady. It turned out it was a big thing, and then I'm like, I wonder what they're doing in the background. I wonder what's happening. And then you come Monday, they start telling you this has happened, that has happened. You're like, but where was I? You didn't even show me all of this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Final thoughts on Davos.
No, Davos is a big problem.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll speak about the biggest problem thereafter, but Davos is being used by the enemy.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind about that. I mean, some of those quotes that you read out there, some of the stuff that Glenn Beck and his co-hosts were talking about, very, very sad.
Yeah. Black Knight, final thoughts?
Honestly, if at this point, if you don't, that's all I'm going to say. Probably it has nothing to do with the show, but at this point, if you don't believe in the Bible and you don't believe in God and Jesus, I would advise you to do that.
Yeah.
It's simple to see now.
Let us know your thoughts on our social media platforms. This is the political show where Christ Politics is
Hot politics.
Hot Politics.